Hey, a lot of us were social distancing before it was cool. That's a joke, of course. A lot of us choose to avoid people for other reasons, but in today's world, there's even ever more reason to stay a few feet apart. I went down to the cannabis store this morning to try to get one last discounted ounce before anything might happen, or, you know, anything is possible. Uh, I was more concerned about them running out than closing the store because I know people like to stock up. And when I got to the door, she stopped me and said, "Oh, you have to wait until we can only help a certain amount of people." So they can only allow 2 people in at a time, I think, 2 or 3 people. And I was more than happy to oblige. This social distancing thing is, it's something that's well known in the pandemic community, but something that, people hear about these keywords once something happens. And we're all learning a lot in this case. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a pandemic expert. I am not a virologist or a biologist, of course, obviously, but I have studied viruses a lot. I'm fascinated with them. What they can do to the human body, the fact that they need, that they are just basically need human cells to reproduce and can't reproduce on their own, but there may have been a time in history when they did reproduce. And then there's some viruses which are larger than bacteria, huge viruses. There's some fascinating aspects. Humans could not reproduce without viruses. It requires a certain virus that is a mutation within our DNA that I believe it helps the egg to be fertilized. Don't recall the specifics, but viruses evolved along with us, and so did bacteria. And every area we live in, we are immersed in these different compounds, natural bacteria, natural viruses, not man-made. And I'm not saying that this couldn't have been an attack somehow, or an attack on, there's a lot of conspiracies floating around, and I really need to cover this. In fact, one of the most frustrating things, the other day when I typed in CO on Google, or on my YouTube rather, it would go to COVID-19 or coronavirus would be the first choices because that's what I've been looking for. But now it's like 7th or 8th. And I realized right away that Google was censoring search results through YouTube and Google. I did a little more digging and found out that they were actually not just deleting search results and omitting search results, and YouTube was omitting videos in order to cover falsehoods, but they were also eliminating all apps from the app stores that had to do with COVID-19. And a lot of people were making legitimate apps to do tracking in your own areas. So it's this whole conundrum of people not knowing what to do at a time when there's a crisis unfolding that we did foresee, but that people are still completely in denial of. Not everyone. And I think a majority of people understand how serious this is. But, even talking to my neighbors, they're elderly and they really just laughed it off and thought, well, here's my number in case you need some help, just in case. The thing is, we're all in this together, regardless of what you believe, whether you think it's a conspiracy. And I wanted to get back to the bioweapon thing. The interesting aspect of this virus that I've noticed, because I want to say I'm a recovering conspiracy theorist. In other words, I've learned to really analyze my conspiracy theories and say, is this just what I want to believe is true? Do I want to think that people are running the world, or do I want to think that there's just a loose-knit group of rich fucks who think they know what's best for everyone? And that's pretty much what I believe. When it comes to this, I thought, how hard would it be to make it look like it came from China and then spread it all around through, different travel around and meet up with different leaders. The fascinating thing to me is that so many leaders, wives of leaders, relatives of health workers and health officials themselves have gotten sick. And one might say, well, it's because they're exposed to each other. And that may be true. But the ratio of politicians to citizens makes you wonder how much is really going on. Maybe it's just worse than we're told. A lot of places don't want to panic their citizens. Look, I'm not sitting here trying to freak anyone out. I've been thinking this through for a long time. For the last 2 months, I've been saying, we've got to get ready, we've got to get ready, we've got to get ready. I look back to a video I made a month ago talking about that, and the one I made a week before that talking about my apocalypse dreams, and it tripped me out. I thought, oh my God, I've been having these weird apocalypse dreams about tidal waves or forest fires or all these different things from the beginning of the year. And then a few weeks back, we looked at this locust pandemic thing. One second. My little kid, he's playing Castlevania. Probably wonders how to get through a certain level. We're all stuck at home. The family is stuck here. So, anyway, I forget where I was at, but I really want to cover these things. I don't have any notes. This is just off the top of my head. I am fairly concerned about this based on the research I've done about viruses in my lifetime. I think that this is going to kick us in the ass. I looked and found this morning that Italy, we are where Italy was 2 weeks ago. And we are following the same curve as Italy. And if we do continue to follow that curve. Now this is 2 weeks ago before Italy shut down, okay? Now, America is at that point where we have a choice. And I'm not saying we should shut down. I know how America is, and I'm going camping, damn it. I'm stubborn too. But it's about personal responsibility. And if people don't take personal responsibility to at least try and separate themselves from others, then this is going to get worse and overwhelm the system. Now look, I want to compare this and give you some perspective for those who think that this isn't a big deal and it's just the flu. You know, no offense, but that's bullshit. If you think this is just the flu, you don't know what you're talking about. You obviously need to stop watching Fox News or something, because this is not the flu. It's not even a strain of the flu. The coronavirus is a family. People are talking about conspiracies about patents on this virus. Well, there are patents on other coronavirus because they do experiments with them, but that's not the point. I'm saying that right now we need to come together and deal with this as a real thing. Regardless of whether it's man-made or natural, although I lean towards the natural, because Mother Nature has a hell of a more ass-whooping than mankind can come up with. So, I live in Washington State. We have the most cases of the nation, as far as I know. I think New York is catching up pretty quick. We are where Italy was 2 weeks ago, and since then, they've jumped from 1,700 cases to in the 26 or 27,000, something like that. So, you know, they've you know, by over 10 times, they've, you know, increased. It's just insane how many people are getting sick over there. And if you watch the interviews with the doctors, they say, please, you know, be aware of this. This is coming for you. And if you look at American health facilities, they're already setting up tents and getting ready for an influx of patients. So I want to get back to this flu comparison. The flu kills millions of people every year. In America, up to 50 million or more. I think one of the bad flu seasons killed 80 million people. Let me put this in perspective when I did the math on this. The average that I found, I guess it doesn't even really fucking matter. Nobody seems to care. The average people that die per day is fairly low. The hospitals are set up to handle it. But they're not set up to handle a second virus on top of a horrible flu season that we have today. And just that slight influx of patients throws us off balance. We don't have enough ventilators, we don't have enough medicine, and naturally we don't have enough testing because our government has been fairly incompetent. And this isn't political, this is realistic. Our government has always been incompetent. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. We are so tied up with bureaucracy we can't get anything done. And this means that the governors in this situation, the governors are the ones that have to make the real hard decisions for their own citizens. And thank God Inslee did. But at the same time, I'm cursing it, because my governor Inslee shut down all bars and restaurants. My wife is a server, and she's been working at this place for a long time, and we're going to lose, who knows? We might lose everything if the economy crashes. I mean, anything is possible. We've thought about this forever. A lot of people are still playing it around as normal. You know, like I said, even my neighbors, just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. I don't think we're going to run out of groceries anytime soon. I don't think that we're going to grind to a halt tomorrow. But this government has already squandered our resources and made it look good for too long after 2008. Just remember, in the housing crisis in 2008, when they bailed out the banks, it was us, the people, who lost our homes. Well, you know, in this crisis, they've already spent trillions giving it to, you know, pumping it into the economy. And I argued with someone the other day that, why don't they give it to the people? And he actually told me, and this sounded like something out of a comic book argument, Like, well, if you give it to the corporations, then they give it to the people. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. You can still bail out corporations if you need to, and at the same time give to smaller businesses and individuals, because the smaller businesses always get fucked in situations like this. And I'm a small business, and my wife works for a smaller business, as a smaller restaurant. So, we're not in the big corporate chains. And when I saw Trump up there doing a national speech yesterday, who did he decide to bring up on stage? The CEO of Albertsons and Walmart. And the whole time, stock market talk. The entire speech, he talked about how good the economy is going to do and how great the stock market was that day. He neglected to tell you how much money was pumped into it that just got squandered right away. I don't want to make this about politics. I want you to realize, as an individual, you have a responsibility to yourself, to your family, to your elderly parents if you have them, and to anyone that you know, in your neighborhood even. My kids aren't even allowed to play with the neighbor kids anymore because we're being cautious for a while. Let this pass, see what happens. And people just can't seem to handle that. But a majority of Americans can. And I've seen some amazing things in this time. It seems like I have this dream that people will come together over issues like this, but, maybe it's a pipe dream, who knows? Anything's possible. It's inspired me, and I'm making the best of the time I have with my family. We decided to do home learning with the kids since they're out of school for at least a month or two, a couple months. We're also, my wife's out, so we're just doing a variety of different projects, art things, but I'm also, going to try to get some other things done. Cleaned out the garage over there, and I'm going to put in some seeds. I have a grow light that I had in here for a bit as kind of a heater for kind of a sun in the winter. It's a 1,000-watt sodium vapor lamp, and it's a sodium vapor. And I'm going to put that in the garage and grow, or at least start a bunch of seeds for the garden this year, because I thought, never been a better year to start growing your apocalypse garden, right? And my hope is that this thing passes. And, it's hard not to talk about it. There are a lot of other things that I'd like to talk about, but this is on my mind. This is important. I'm fully stocked up and ready to sit this out for a couple months. I might go camping in a couple days with the fam, and if I do, I really want to make a documentary of this whole event, and by the end, be able to post it for you all. In the meantime, I might talk about it a little more because it's an important issue. San Francisco went on total lockdown today. The people aren't even allowed to leave except for essentials. And a lot of people call this martial law, I'm sure. And I get that. But in this case, we're not talking about... it's so hard for people because it's an invisible threat. And we can't seem to see what's actually happening. Is there a possibility that, the whole thing is manufactured? Sure. There's a possibility of everything. But you better be ready, because it's going to get worse before it gets better if we don't take it seriously. And I honestly believe that. So, do what you have to do to make sure that you can get through this time with your family and your friends. And I wish you all well. My next video is more inspiring. Maybe not. Well, it's an old Greek story, so we'll get to that next time. Thanks for watching. Be well, my friends. Peace out.